Welcome everybody. Welcome to this webinar on GPS for recovery. This is going to be an introduction to the GPS group peer support model. I'm Liz Friedman. I'll be presenting this with Annette Sycon. We are both the co-founders and co-presidents of GPS, have been up to doing this work for a long time. And we're just really excited to bring this to all of you. We know that you all have been deep in this work for a very long time. Some of you might be newer to it. The support groups may be something that you already feel really strongly about and feel like you do well. And for some of you, it may be brand new and you're really looking for some ways to be able to really learn the basic skills so you can have a big exhale. That's what GPS for recovery is all about. We want you to feel confident, to feel competent, to have the skills that you need to be able to run groups in all of the communities that you serve with real ability to know that what you're bringing to folks is the very best that you can bring to them, that you're creating environments that allow them to do real healing and recovery, that allow them to sustain themselves in their own recovery, and to really have the foundation underneath their feet. So that's what we're going to do today. And I am so excited that we are going to have some folks who are going to be able to share with us some of their perspectives. And Annette, why don't you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. First, I just want to thank the folks from BSAS, from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, the Bureau of Substance and Addiction Services. These folks have been our partners in very profound ways. And I mean, all of you who do direct service have been our teachers, our partners, and have been implementing this with us now since 2019. And I also want to profoundly thank the leadership at BSAS. Specifically, I want to thank Deborah Berkovitz, who is here with us today, Ruth Jacobson Hardy, Colleen McGrath, Jen Parks, Julia Reddy, who's no longer with the Bureau, but was for quite a long time, as well as Lillian Kamakuye. And they have been both champions, partners, thought partners in all areas of this program with us. And we're just really, really grateful. And Deborah, you're here with us today. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to offer a welcome to everyone, as well as to share any perspectives that you have and why BSAS is so invested in using GPS across the statewide programs, and especially your programs. You have to unmute. Go ahead and unmute. I know it happens to all of us. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited about this. I work at DPH in the Bureau of Family Health and Nutrition and in BSAS, and I do the perinatal substance use work, and I also direct First Steps Together, which is a home visiting program for substance-affected families. And I have been familiar with GPS and with Liz and Annette's work for a very long time. And I have felt also for a very long time that this is a really missing piece within the treatment system for a few reasons. One is that I think that we rely more and more on groups understanding that building community is an incredibly important part of people's recovery. You know, that addiction is a disease of isolation. And so rebuilding connections for people is incredibly important. And from a funding perspective and insurance perspective, we're moving more and more towards group modalities of treatment. And yet often, apart from having kind of a curriculum to implement or a theme to address, people who are running groups often don't have really strong training in how to facilitate a safe and productive group for participants and also for leaders, so that leaders feel like they really have what they need to do so they can walk out of a group feeling good and confident, and not like, oh my goodness, what just happened? There was a train wreck in there. And so I think part of it is about group work. I think part of it is also that one of the things I love about GPS is that it really gives a very safe container for people to have the feelings that they need to have. And that I think just as a society, we don't really know how to deal with, don't know how to deal well with all kinds of feelings, grief, anger, guilt, resentment, shame. And, these feelings are very, very tied up in people's use and very tied up in people's recovery. And that the beauty of GPS for me is that there's really an opportunity to be able to have your feelings and know that they're not going to kill you, and to be able to bring them up in a big way and then figure out how to kind of, safely have them and safely put them away. And as an individual and also functioning in a group, I think those are incredibly important skills to have both in treatment and then taking out into the world, because feelings are going to keep coming up for us and we have to know how to share them with other people and also how to not be overwhelmed by them. So for me, that's a really huge strength of GPS. I've used GPS in different programs. I've participated. Every time I'm ever in a GPS group, I'm having a hallelujah moment, like, when can I have another one? So I feel like for staff, I think for people who are going to implement it in your programs, I think doing it also with staff having a chance to participate. Like, I love to get to do this for myself. It feels like a gift when I get to do a GPS group. And in our program, we decided to use it across all of our sites to have some common language and to be able to know that people were kind of, had the skill sets that they really needed to have to be running groups for people. So that's my big GPS. Somebody's unmuted there. And, we haven't done a whole lot of rolling out specific initiatives across like the treatment system as a whole. So this has been one that we've thought really, really carefully about the benefits for a wide variety of levels of care, and for residents and clients and for staff also. So I hope that it's something that you find to be as helpful as we have.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I know you have other meetings you need to attend, so we're just so glad that you were able to make it. And really, Deborah has been, she's not kidding when she says she's known us a really long time, has watched this model evolve, and really has been one of our partners in this. And we're just, as you know, as we say to you in private conversation and through text chats, and every time we get a chance, we're just so grateful for you and for your partnership and your intelligence and brilliance and commitment to folks, and especially to mamas who are in recovery, mamas and babies. I believe that Ruth is here, except I keep seeing her and then losing her. Oh, there she is.
I'm here.
Wait,
I'm here.
I see you. So Ruth Jacobson Hardy, I wanted to welcome you and also thank you profoundly for your partnership with GPS, and give you an opportunity as well on behalf of BSAS to welcome folks and to share why you believe it's been so important for GPS to become integrated into the services of BSAS across the state.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Liz and Annette. Really happy to be here. Happy to share what I love about GPS. It's really an amazing model that teaches on so many different levels of important skills that I know we at BSAS want to have our staff have. And I think that, Deborah, you said it, you've said so many of the things that I would say too. I think the structure that people get when you learn what a GPS group is and the different pieces of the group and the importance of the guidelines of the group, it really gives you as a facilitator something to go on and some structure, so that you're not just kind of going with the flow. And I think that structure provides you with the ability to learn about leadership, learn what you as a facilitator need to be able to do, need to be able to say. And that structure and that facilitation creates the safety that is so important for people to be able to share and use the group in a really productive way, so that people can actually say what's going on with them and know that they will be respected and listened to and not interrupted and not given advice and all that stuff that sometimes happens, which can shut people down. So I love the fact that you have realities and principles, and that you make a distinction between sort of what we believe in, which is that people are really the best drivers of their own lives. It's like you are the best person to know how to run your life. So that's like a principle. And the reality is that sometimes you don't know what you're doing, and sometimes things come and hit you and push you off course. And so I love the fact that you explain those two things that are happening at the same time, and that it really allows people in the group to, to embrace those realities and principles at the same time. And I love the way in which you can do these groups on any topic that you want to do them. I mean, you can choose your own topic. If you're really passionate about a particular thing that you just figured out, you can construct the content piece of the group around the piece that you want to share as a facilitator, and then let the group take on the process that it takes on. So there's so many wonderful things about this, and I really hope what we want to be able to do is train enough people that you can bring these skills into your program, that you can teach other staff. They can come and observe your groups. You can do these groups together. Sometimes it's best to have two facilitators. And it's also a really good way to get support among the staff. You can use some of the listening back and forth as staff, because this work is hard and it's not always clear cut. So again, I really hope that folks take in what this is. It's not just any old group training, group facilitator training. It's not something you do in a 5-hour, one-day workshop. It's a little more in depth. It requires a little more time and attention. And we really particularly want the supervisors to support direct staff or clinicians or clinic counselors to do these types of groups, and try it and see what a difference it makes within your treatment program. So thanks, Liz.
Oh, thank you, Ruth. I'm so glad you're able to be here. Thank you for your perspective on that. I think it's really important. And I just want to say, for all of you who are watching, who are part of the BSAS community, one of the reasons that we're doing this webinar is we want to give you a good, solid orientation to the model, and then you get to sign up to be able to participate in the next training, which is coming really rapidly here in just another couple of weeks. And we'll have information about that at the very end of this webinar. And you may also already have that in your inbox. But if you need that information beforehand, because for some reason you have to hop off, just put it in the chat, and maybe one of us can put some more information in the chat, Annette, so people can see the registration pathway if they're ready to do that and join us in all of this. All right, so
Liz, can I say one sentence here?
Yeah, of course.
Well, we're also recording this webinar, and it's going to be up on our website, and we're going to be showing it to other people in other states and communities. And so if you are not from Massachusetts and you're interested in GPS, and this is the first you're hearing about it, thank you very much for tuning in, and please be in touch with us about and joining future trainings. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks for saying that. All right, so let's really launch into this now. So what we know is that social support groups are essential components in the comprehensive treatment of substance use disorders. And I would even say, and I don't think this is in any way overstating it, that group treatment was really born in the recovery movement. We know how incredibly effective and impactful it can be. And one of the things that we are doing at GPS Group Peer Support is helping to even accentuate that more, to build an even more solid foundation so that we can bring the kind of therapeutic care that we know people in recovery benefit from. And I would even dare to say all people benefit from therapeutic support in a group environment. It's just that all of you have been particularly brilliant about it, and have really been able to show how much being in group can break isolation, can normalize experience, can solidify the development of new identities, new behaviors, can really support the courage of individuals to rise to what they see in each other. Because what always happens when we're in a group with each other is we see courage, even when we see tears, even when we see despair, even when we see fear, even when we see relapse, we still see courage. We see somebody who has shown up yet again today, who sees today as an opportunity to take that next step. And that allows us to take the next step. That is part of the incredible strength that we see in groups. And we're so grateful then to, be able to be working in the recovery field, because you all get it. You all get it in your, in your skin, in your bones, in your soul, right? A lot of us have lived experience in recovery ourselves. We have sat in groups ourselves, and that's been part of our journey to get to here where we can now be passing it forward. So let me share a little bit more about what GPS is. And GPS really is many things. It is a structured approach to providing a therapeutic group mental health care model that is consistent. It is trauma informed, and it's community based. We both build on an incredible evidence base, and we've tested this in communities just like yours, communities that are extraordinarily diverse across both Massachusetts and across the country. One of the things that our model is really focused on is promoting personal resiliency, self-efficacy, and recovery, right? So each person's ability to lead their own life, to be able to take on the challenge that they're ready to take on in terms of their own recovery and their own life. And we do that through increasing social support, through providing psychosocial education that is built into the very fabric of the support group. And then that leads to empowerment so that people can take their own next steps forward. The structure is really easy to use. It's really easy to adapt to your unique population in any setting. So we see this being used in residential, in outpatient, in all kinds of clinical settings. This has been used with all kinds of populations. We'll get to that later, in all kinds of different settings. So you can feel reassured that this will work with your population. And it also is successfully implemented by both professionals and peer leaders. So we love peer leaders, and we know that peer leaders have a very unique lens because we've lived it, right? If we're a peer leader, we've lived it. And through living it, that gives us an incredible strength to be able to pass forward. We're that living example to folks. And often the training of peer leaders is really different than mental health professionals or other kinds of professionals. And we want to be sure that all peer leaders have all the skills that they need so that you feel comfortable and confident in running groups. And professionals as well really benefit. We have heard from more and more professionals over all these years that we've been doing this work that often they didn't learn how to run groups. That was not part of their professional training, or they learned, but they're ready for some new skills and to really refresh and go deeper. So whether you are a professional with professional expertise, a peer leader, or many of us are both and all of those things, of course, GPS is for you.
Thanks, Liz. So as Liz said before, my name's Annette Sycon, and I've been a social worker.
Yeah, I'd like to schedule.
Someone needs to mute themselves for some reason. Someone,
I'll do that.
I'm here. You take care of that. Thank you. I've been in the social work field for 35 years. And I've always had a fascination and a commitment to groups. So I bring a lot of experience in different communities and populations and over many years. So I want to just give us a little overview of our history with GPS for recovery. And I'll do this quickly, but it speaks to, what Liz said about our connection with this initiative for quite some time. So in the year 2000, we launched the GPS support group model. Liz and I designed it. And so over these 21 years, we've been refining it and revising it. In 2006, we focused our attention on perinatal mothers. So there was very little information in the general population, but also in medical and mental health around postpartum emotional complications and maternal mental health. And so we started using the support group model as a place for moms to get essential support and mental health care that was positive, that helped them to understand what they were experiencing and lift the stigma of what they were experiencing during those postpartum years. And that included moms in recovery, because as we all know, there's a lot of stigma for moms who are struggling with substance use disorders and in their recovery. And so we were very, very lucky and privileged to be serving that population, and we learned a lot. We started training facilitators because more and more groups were needed across the state. And then we found Deborah Berkovitz, where she was at that time the director of Fresh Start in Holyoke, which was a program serving moms who were particularly involved with, substances. And they focused on that perinatal period. So there was a beautiful dovetail between our work and hers. And they were so taken by the model that she committed to training her entire staff in GPS, and they all used it at that location. And it was pretty remarkable what they found. And that sort of laid the cornerstone in many ways for this work right here. And she has been with us now, as you can see, for over 10 years. So there at Fresh Start, they started Moms in the Hood, which was a fabulous group that was led by Julie Gagney and Erica Napolitan, Debbie Flynn Gonzalez. So these people are folks you might know. And then since that time, we've been implementing recovery programs and recovery groups across the state. And BSAS started sponsoring facilitator trainings in 2019, before the pandemic, when we were meeting live across the state. And since that time, we've been doing virtual trainings that included BSAS staff and programs from across the state, all through the pandemic. And we're going to continue doing it that way virtually because of the ease of participation. So, and then since that time, there's been implementation of GPS recovery groups in Massachusetts, which you're going to hear about. And then last year during the pandemic, when we had nothing else to do, we completed our curriculum, which is a support group curriculum that we call On the Road to Recovery, which has been used by many people across Massachusetts successfully. And that is, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on too. So Liz mentioned that, yes, that GPS is replicable in many, many different settings. So, I think about residential programs, and I think of Gandhara, I think of Jeremiah's Inn, I think about Hope House, I think about Edwina Martin House, I think about Grace House. All of these places and more have been trained. People in those programs have been trained in GPS and are using them in residential. We have Omar Delgado here from Gandhara, and he will speak in a few minutes about how his guys loved that program so much that they asked for a second group every week. Medical and mental health centers, we've trained Boston, the MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital people, folks across BHN and CHD and all the mental health and medical programs across the state, Bay State and so forth. Recovery support centers in Springfield, on the Cape and the islands, and in New Bedford and Lowell, Worcester. So again, blanketing the whole state in this kind of a setting. Community-based programs, again, like Hope for Holyoke and so forth. And then peer recovery coach programs. So all of these programs have implemented GPS successfully and in their various different settings. First Steps Together, as Deborah said, has committed to using GPS in all of their programs. So they have sent people from all their programs across the state to learn GPS and are implementing it with moms and dads across the state, and parents who may not identify as biological moms or dads, caregivers. And populations, so GPS is being run in Spanish. We've also have, places in Boston where people are using it in Mandarin, and in other parts of the country where it's being used in Arabic languages. We serve Black, Hispanic, BIPOC, Asian, immigrant, refugee communities, the people that you serve. These are all the people you serve, and GPS is being used currently with them. This is Deborah, and I just, love this quote. She said it a few minutes ago, but what I love about the GPS model is its structure and adaptability. So both structure and adaptability. We can add curricula and content that's appropriate for the people we work with and still have the benefit of a consistent model that creates safety and allows sharing to go deeper, as she said. And it gives our group facilitators a structure that works all the time. So GPS is like the scaffolding, the structure, the trauma-informed scaffolding of your group, within which you bring in the content specific to your population. So if you're working with a homeless population in Boston, it's going to be a very different lived experience than folks who are in the rural communities in Pittsfield. And so GPS can be implemented in any of those settings. And inside of that group, you're going to be speaking about the realities and lived experience of the population that's sitting in your room at that moment. And GPS is designed to allow that to happen.
So I want to just talk a little bit about what we believe at GPS, because this really gets to the core of what we think is really fuels the power of the model. Because what we believe, and I know it's what you believe also, or you wouldn't be doing this work. What we believe is that people are born whole, that hurt happens, and that healing is possible, that people can recover, right? This is the basic belief that we have, that no matter how many times we have fallen, we can rise. No matter how many times we may have relapsed, this may be the time where our recovery will really move forward, that we are going to be putting our all into this moment, and that we are going to be believing yet again in our ability as humans to be able to face the challenges that we face, to recover from the hurts that we've healed, and to live the lives that we deserve. I want to share a couple of our other real core beliefs. We believe that people begin to heal the moment they are heard. The moment that they can really be heard, whether they can show it on their face, whether it shows up in their behavior, whether anything changes quickly. And we know that things can both change quickly and can take a very, very long time for real change to be implemented and to stick. But we also believe that the minute people are listened to with real compassion, respect, with non-judgment, with the ability for their intelligence to be fully supported, with the immense understanding that they, at every moment of their lives, have done the best that they could with the circumstances that they've been handed, and that they're doing it again, that's the moment that healing begins. We believe that support from others is the key to recovery from substance use disorders and healing from trauma. So that's, again, goes right back to the core belief that I know we all hold, which is that groups are so essential for recovery because it is that relationship. And for many of us, it's learning relationship for the first time, or learning healthy relationship, learning what a supportive relationship can be, learning what it means to really be with somebody and feel understood and not feel judged. That becomes the real key of the support group model. And this all leads to the secret sauce of GPS, what we think really makes this work. One, it normalizes the experience. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who suffered in these ways. And the key about that kind of early trauma that many of us have experienced is that part of what comes in when the early trauma is also like, it was just us and we can't tell anybody, right? So we want to break that. That's one of the first things that we need to change for people to be able to start their healing. We validate. Someone gets me. You understand. Like, it's not the craziness in my own head. It's not my own mistakes. Like, you actually understand where I'm coming from, how I got here, and why I'm trying again, why I'm on this next step of my journey, why my recovery is so key. It breaks isolation. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. That becomes really, really key. And then lastly, it empowers. I can do this. Because why? Because I'm looking around this circle and I see you. I see that you've taken on challenges in your life. I see that the other participants have taken on challenges in their own lives. And that is what brings the power of the group model. And everything in our model leads to this. And now Annette's going to share a little bit more about that.
Thanks, Liz. So we talk about being trauma informed all the time. What does it actually look like, right? We've taken trauma informed trainings and we know what it means and so forth. But in GPS, we actually embed our trauma informed practices in every single step of the outline. So from the minute you open your door, if you're live, or the minute you open your Zoom room until you close your Zoom room, until every person has left, every step of the way has elements of trauma-informed theory and practice. And so what are they? What does that mean? We have a consistent, predictable structure, right? One of the reasons why AA is so effective is that if you go to an AA group in Miami and you go to an AA group in Worcester, they're going to have the same structure. And so that is one of the reasons why it's a trauma-informed model, right? Or what's a trauma-informed element of it. Well, similarly with GPS, GPS is a structured, predictable model so that if you were incarcerated and there was a GPS group being run inside, and then you come to a program of integration into the community and GPS is being used again, that's really helpful. And if you then go to another program, a peer recovery center on your journey, and GPS is used again, then your ability to heal and to grow in your recovery is exponentially increased because you're not having to step on the learning curve every step of the way. Right? You're familiar with what the model is. You're familiar week after week and program by program what is to be expected. And that helps a lot to diminish anxiety, to build trust, and to be able to relax into what you need to be looking at in your group session. We practice an accessible mindful technique in every single session. And it teaches emotional self-regulation. And when I say accessible mindfulness, we're not sitting cross-legged on the floor and chanting Om. We're not doing anything that seems woo-woo or weird. What we do know, there's been tons and tons of research about the positive effect of mindfulness-based practice, and it can be implemented in many, many different ways for the population that you're serving, because for some people that kind of stuff is not at all what they're interested in or comfortable with. And so we're creative around how do we create that mindfulness experience, which is so important to learn as a tool for self-regulation in a way that I can accept, in the way that works for me and my busy life. And this is the place where I live. And so we allow for that creativity there, but it's always a part of it, and it's really, really helpful. We have consistent group guidelines. Now, of course, every single group that you're running or learn about, you have guidelines, confidentiality, and various different things like that, right? But when we do our group guidelines, we take it a step further. And then we talk about not only how we want to create safety in our group situation, in our group right now here today, but we also talk about how are healthy relationships created? How is intimacy and trust created? What are the building blocks and the elements of building healthy relationships and communication that we're going to use here in this group that give us a place to practice and to feel the effect of being treated in that way by other people? So it's a really powerful part of our training, and about the group outline is the way that we use guidelines very deliberately, particularly if people have experienced relational trauma, which so many of us have, right? The idea of being in a group and trusting somebody all over again and speaking out loud in front of people. I mean, raise your hand if that's been a barrier and an issue for group members. Like every single one of us who's run a group has had somebody who's like, I'm not doing that, right? And of course, right, that makes sense. If I've been hurt by people in the past, if I've had bad experiences in groups in the past, which people have, why would I want to do that again, take that risk again? And we know that, right? We are very aware that people are coming into our groups with relational trauma and group trauma, perhaps as well. And so we are very conscientious about creating a container within which a person can develop their trust at their own pace. We create a protected opportunity for self-reflection and sharing in an environment of non-judgment, compassion, and respect. It's maybe the only place or the first time that someone has had people listen to them uninterrupted, and ability to self-reflect, maybe go places that are hard to go, and not feel judged or shame or rush in to fix and help. To have a safe, protected space to speak and to feel is a rare and precious gift. We integrate somatic grounding techniques and polyvagal practice. For those of you who are, know about that, what we're talking about is how to be embodied. What is it about our nervous system that gets so activated when we're in a fight, flight, or freeze modality, right? And so we actually incorporate not only psychosocial education, but also some somatic techniques, in grounding and breathing and body awareness and so forth, that can help with that regulation, not only in group, but outside of group. And we train facilitators very deliberately. As Ruth said, this is not a 1-hour training. This is a training in which we really take you through a process of learning how to create a container like the one I just described, right? And part of that is appropriate facilitator self-disclosure, right? And there is a big issue around that. Like, that's a big question. Like, are we not supposed to share? And so we talk about that in depth, because we know that there is positive therapeutic effect when we can speak about our own experience as role models, and also to say, you're not alone. I get you because I've been there. It's one of the things I love about working in recovery field is the numbers of people in leadership and in every aspect who have lived experience and so can speak from that place of humility and courage. And we talk about that too. I'm not going to get into each one of these in depth, but for those of you who, like to know what the evidence base is, we have, again, been very deliberate over 20 years in designing and refining the GPS model so that it includes all of these evidence-based theories, practices, and, they're seamless. You can't, unless you really knew that that's what's going on, it's not like, oh, we're going to do some cognitive behavioral therapy right now, no. But it's woven in there every step of the way. Motivational interviewing, which is something that most of you have been trained in, there are elements of that in there too. So I'm not going to go through all of these. When you take the training, you'll learn about that. And finally, let's talk about the benefits of the programs. We've heard from Ruth and from Deborah about what why they're so passionate about bringing GPS around the state. And these are the things we've heard and that we know have been true in Massachusetts, and which is why we're doing this webinar, and which is why people are encouraged to use GPS in your settings. It increases program participation, retention, and completion. So for those of you who have time limited groups, and when we were doing this at the Grace House, what they told us was in the period of time that they were using GPS, there was a higher completion of the program and graduation rate. Reduction of conflict in groups and in programs. One of the reasons that we're nervous about running groups is that we're scared if the whole thing blows up, right? Oh my God, what if so-and-so starts yelling at so-and-so and then they start challenging me and it's just like a nightmare, right? Nobody wants that. Because of the structured, manner, fashion that the group is created, there is an enormous reduction in conflict. And therefore, that if you have a residential program, for instance, and your group members are hanging out with each other when they're not in group, you're going to see that ripple out into the program as well. Many of our facilitators have told us that not only does it make them better group facilitators, but it also provides them skills for their one-on-one interactions between themselves and their clients. And we've heard that from program directors too, who have sent their staff to the group training that their staff's interactions are improved across the board. And so that's very exciting. Enhances leadership in facilitators and clients. It reduces stress and burnout. And increases confidence and competence in new and existing staff. If you're dreading running group because it's hard and you don't feel 100% comfortable and you're worried about conflict and then the stress of this work is hard enough as it is. But this model creates that structure that brings that success into the experience, which makes our work so much more enjoyable and because we see progress, we witness change. And so it makes us feel like we're doing something, like we're the purpose and the passion that brought us to this work is bearing fruit. And so that reduces our burnout and our stress, and it increases our sense of leadership and the leadership in our clients. The benefit to the program, to programs and across the state is that when you use GPS across all your programs, everybody's using a consistent model. And that's why Ruth and Deborah are so passionate about GPS, because they want to see this model being used in all different kinds of settings. And so therefore, all of us can rest assured that when you refer someone to a group, you know what they're going to. It's easier to refer someone if you know that the facilitator is trained in a trauma-informed model and that they're going to have a good experience. And because you're using a consistent model, you can rapidly integrate new staff because you're having new staff all the time. And you're not having to say, go recreate the wheel, go run that group. It's like, here's a model, use it when you're running your new group. Really helps a lot. So I'm checking out time here, and I want to give Betty, Doherty, and Kevin and Omar an opportunity to speak for like a minute about, because they're implementing GPS on the ground. So I really would love to hear Betty first speak about all the groups that she's run GPS with and what's been her experience as a facilitator.
Oh, great. Thank you, Annette. So I'm Betty Doherty, and I am currently working at Bay State as a family recovery support specialist in Deborah's program, the First Steps Together. And I had the opportunity of 2 years ago being trained on this, the best training I've been to. And you guys are a hard act to follow to explain the benefits. But the groups I have done and currently have had so much success with: the dads group, the moms group, the women in recovery, family recovery support specialists together, people in recovery, you name it, they all come. And one of the biggest benefits, you've already heard here, is the connection, the trust, the safety, and the camaraderie that happens in the groups. And people keep coming back because this model is so effective. Ruth and Deborah so nicely elaborated on the concepts and the guidelines, and that's what makes us successful. The confidentiality right up front. Everybody feels safe because they know that what is said in the group stays in the group. I have to mention too that the men blew me away. The feedback, it makes me teary still thinking about it. The feedback I got in the men's group about feeling like they were heard, validated, appreciated, not judged. And when we got to the, I loved the fifth one, the fifth guideline, I think it is: strong emotions are welcome. Some men come in a rage. Some men swear a lot, not to stereotype women being any different or better, but men, I think, often weren't allowed to show their emotions and felt that they shouldn't cry or rage. And all of that is welcome in GPS as long as it's non-threatening, and the men, Annette talks about it all the time. I swear to God, you would have thought I gave these guys $1 million. They were so receptive to this model. One of the things they really liked that really fascinated the heck out of me was they like getting the reflection. When we do the check-in question and you say, may I reflect on that? They love getting feedback. And I think as humans, I think we like to be validated, and again, they keep coming back. The moms group was incredible. The people in recovery, what I found most very effective also is again, the peer-to-peer. A lot of women, you'd see them shaking their head and twinkling and thumbs up, like the realities, Ruth mentioned it, the realities that we're dealing with real stuff. And this past year and a half, putting the COVID into it, that life is a struggle. Early recovery is a struggle. The DCF don't believe in people, and the list goes on. But I think one of the best things is people keep coming back because, as Annette and Liz, everybody has explained, we continue to create that safe container, and people share. People share what's on their heart and their mind, and it's so healing. Those are some of the things that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Betty is one of our most prolific facilitators, and she brings her own secret sauce, right? Betty is Betty.
Right.
That's the beauty of the model too. It's like, Betty is Betty. This isn't a cookie cutter, and I just love that. So thanks, Betty, for saying that. I appreciate all the different groups you've run. Is Kevin McCarthy still here? Kevin McCarthy is, I have all your things written down, but you're one of the clinical directors at Elliott Hospital. You're the board president of MORE, which stands for Massachusetts organization for recovery, and you're also a consultant in areas of racial justice and a clinical social worker. So I just want to give you a minute to just say what you have experienced as a benefit for GPS when you've used it with the people you work with.
Yeah, thank you, Annette. And, I think that for me, my experience with being introduced to GPS was that even as an LICSW, I learned so much from this model, that the model has allowed me, as you showed on the previous slide, to integrate all of these skills that I had developed and was using individually. I was CBT over here, motivational interviewing over there, to be able to bring them together in a group setting and affect these relationships with groups of people where they are validated, they're supported. And what is modeled for them are these emotional regulations, are the ability to separate their realities from their values, and to change their reality, right, based on their new values in recovery. And for me, that's what recovery is, right? Recovery is taking a set of values that I probably always had, and making them my new reality. And GPS helps with that transition, because the person that was active, right, their values got suppressed and the reality was chaos. When they come into the group, they can learn to, as you said, have those strong feelings, express them, right, and learn how to contain them, and then how to respond properly amongst their peers. And it's an amazing, consistent set of steps to someone integrating the recovery process with the support of peers.
That's
so
amazing.
One of the things I've done at Elliott it's how I run my groups at Elliott. I have a harm reduction support group. I have a peer recovery support group. So I'm not only working with people who have said, I'm in recovery and I'm working on abstinence or one of the multiple pathways to recovery. I also have a group for mental health clients who are not sure whether recovery is right for them. So it's sort of an exposure to what does recovery mean? They may have a secondary diagnosis of substance use disorder and may still be in denial, but they have the opportunity there to explore what it means to move into a recovery community. GPS, I'm looking forward to, from a program director standpoint, I'm looking forward to integrating it into working for our OBAT, which is our outpatient behavioral addiction treatment program, and also with our recovery coaches, and to train recovery coaches so that in their recovery coach groups, they can provide these type of structured models. So it's been fantastic for me. And I thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you a lot, very much. I'm noticing that we're at time and I don't want to, I want to respect everybody's time, and there's a couple of things left for important things that we want to cover. But I also don't want to cut off Omar because we invited him to say a word or two. But Omar, the thing that I was so impressed by when you told us this last year after your folks were trained is that your men liked it so much that they asked for a second group. So can you just speak to that like in 1 minute so that we can then get people registered for or excited about the next training? Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Annette, for inviting me to this webinar. Yes, once we get trained to this model for the GPS, we've started right away to implement it to our groups in the Uganda Additional Recovery Program facilities. One of the things that they love is they feel secure and they can regulate their stress or their level of anxiety. And not only that, the mindfulness and the thoughtfulness on the groups by giving them the power is for them, it's just like recovery. Like
Yep.
they was said, recovery for me is taking back respect, taking back responsibility, taking back my life, taking back, reintegrated back to the society. And the group became so successful they just want us to facilitate it twice a week as a minimum.
I remember that.
And I was so excited when I'm continuing hearing them asking me for a second group, that I have to let you know. This group, really is working for our program, because they feel so sort of validation on the groups, and not only that, they feel they can express themselves and be themselves.
Yeah.
And
Well,
nobody
and
judges them.
one of the things that, thank you so much. I love that story. And you're running a residential program, and I know the residential programs are very hard and understaffed at the moment. And what I heard you also saying is the time it took to be trained is worth it, because of the benefit to not only your clients, which is who you're dedicated to, but also to your staff. Your staff enjoy running the group. They feel good after running the group. And I think we also have to be thinking about our staff, particularly in residential, about feeling effective, because there's a high amount of stress and burnout in the residential field. And we want to make this model accessible to all of you. Okay. Thanks, Omar and Betty and Kevin. I'm going to hand it back over to Liz, and she's going to take us home.
Thanks, Annette. So this is like the quickest we could ever think to share GPS with you. We're trying so hard to keep it under an hour, but we're a little bit over. I do want to just share with you, this is our GPS for Recovery curriculum for all who attend the training. This is part of what you will receive, and this is really your roadmap. It's your roadmap for working with your populations. And as Kevin and Betty and others have shared, Omar, you also get to really just continue to refine this for your particular population. So we're so happy that we've got this, and it's quite the very useful tool. Let me share with you the upcoming facilitator training. So the upcoming training starts October 19th. It is opening practicums are October 19th, the 28th, and 21st. Those are all live. We want you to experience a GPS group for yourself before you learn how to do it. So those are live sessions. They're 2.5 hours each. Then the modules start on October 26th. They're 3 days a week through November 4th. They also are 2.5 hours long, and they are also recorded. So you can experience them live, or you can experience them recorded. And then we have practicums, lots of opportunity for you to practice. The link to register is in the chat, and we'll be able to stay afterwards and answer any questions as well. So let me just leave you with one last thought. One of our basic beliefs in GPS. You can go to the next slide, Annette.
Excuse me, I just want to not interrupt, but I also want to just say, those opening practicums each day, you only have to choose one. So it's not like you're doing 3 days in a row for these 4 weeks in a time. You're only choosing one opening practicum that you have to attend live, and one closing practicum that you have to attend live. That's why we have 3 options. And then, as Liz said, about the educational modules are live or recorded. Thank you.
And there's additional practicums.
And then there are,
and those are special for all of you. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to practice. Practicing is what makes this, makes this model then hit the road, so that you're able to actually get it into your hands and into your programs effectively.
and what's going to be unique about this piece about the additional programs is that practicums is that they're going to be BSAS specific. So they're going to only include those of you who are here through the BSAS and recovery work in your practicums. And there'll be small group practicums with individual coaching by GPS leaders. So at the end of that time, you will be like launched and ready to go. You can, take those practicums quickly from November to January if you like to get them, have them all in, or you can spread them out over a longer period of time to fit your schedule. We're trying to, be understanding about how busy you are, and want to make sure that you will leave this training like, yeah, ready, I'm good. Ruth.
And I would just say that they're additional, but they're mandatory. So this is part of the program, is that we want you all to have this in your hands. One of the beautiful things about practicums lasting through March is you're going to get to go back to your program, you're going to run groups, and then you're going to come back to us and you're going to ask questions, and we're going to get to work through things and figure out where the challenges are for you as individuals and your program. Ruth, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share something.
Yeah, I just also, I think you just said it, Liz. I wanted to emphasize the importance of doing groups, as you take this training, that part of the learning is going back to your work and practicing. So we do ask that you have the capacity to run a group, or maybe more than one, in order to practice what you're learning. And I think that will also add to your learning in the additional practicum experience. Thanks.
Yeah, and we really encourage you in your program to bring, more than just you, right? You want to really integrate this into your program. So if you're here, go tell folks at the staff meeting and in your program, and come together, because that's the way you're going to be able to integrate this really successfully into the fabric of your program. And you'll be able to really take us up on the suggestion that you integrated into the way you provide support to yourselves as part of your team. All right, one last thought we wanted to share with you. You want to go to the next slide? When they tell you it runs in the family, you tell them this is where it runs out. We're about helping people heal. That's the work that we're doing. We're not putting band-aids on things. We're helping people get their lives back the way that they want them to be, so that that next generation, oh my God, I look at this baby and I could just start weeping, because this baby is just so gorgeous in terms of how connected he is to his mom and how much hope are in his eyes. No matter what trauma she may have experienced or any of us have experienced, we get to pass on healing to our community, to ourselves, to our families, to our children, to the world. So we look forward to you joining us at the upcoming GPS training. Please go and register. We'll hang back now, and I'll turn off the record button, and we'll be available to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for your commitment, and for doing this work.